Hello and welcome to Baseball Barbacast, the only baseball podcast in the world who thinks that the Yankees City Connect uniforms should just be what Timothy Chalamet wore to the Oscars. I'm Jake Mintz. That's Jordan Shusterman. Did you see this?
I did, yeah. I mean, Chalamet's on fire. So, I mean, now would be the time to try and convince, especially at the state of the Yankees, where they're very much in flux and kind of open to new ideas. I feel like we might be able to make this happen. I mean, if not now, when?
There really is not any Timothy Chalamet baseball overlap.
Well,
besides one of the best tweets of all time, the "I would strike out Timothy Chalamet on 3 pitches" tweet, which if you haven't seen, give that a little Google. It's truly phenomenal stuff. On this episode of Baseball Barbacast, we're not going to review the Oscars, as combined, Jordan and I saw only 2 of the movies that were nominated for Best Picture because we were busy watching ball. That's the real Best Picture, is Game 5 of the 2024
yeah, why
ALCS.
didn't that get nominated? Oh my gosh, that was talk about a drama, talk about a comedy. That would have fit for so many different genres. But no, we are the opposite of movie people. So we're going to keep talking about baseball. And our opener today is a very goofy topic. Let's get to it.
We're going to talk about team-related spring training cliches. Now, you know about best shape of your life, right? And that's player-specific. We hear that every year. And there is some real joy and beauty in hearing half of the league tell us that they feel great. Mm-hmm. That's a good thing. But we want to zoom in on the team-specific stuff, because the cliche that players use to talk about their team does actually reveal something to us about their own self-assessment.
Yes, and I think that is where, even at this stage where everybody is optimistic, we wanted to kind of narrow it down who is eligible for our particularly favorite spring training cliche when it comes to team-related assessments, and that is, we're going to surprise some people.
Boo!
This is the one line that every time I see it in some form during February and early March, I think, one, are they going to surprise some people? Is Team X going to surprise some people? And then I think, what would a surprise be? And then I think, will they? Or can they? I guess is the best question. Can they actually? We know they believe they can, but we wanted to kind of identify who is exactly eligible to surprise some people, because I don't think it's the Dodgers.
No team, I would say, has ever said, we're going to surprise some people in spring training and then won the World Series. Like, I don't...
Interesting, right? Well, I mean, I'm sure there have been underdogs. I guess, were the Rangers saying that before 2023? Maybe?
But when you say we're going to surprise some people, like, you're saying people think we suck. That is what that really means. Okay? That means that there are low expectations, a frustrated fan base, and a Fangraphs playoff odds under, like, 10%.
Okay.
Because no team with true aspirations is acknowledging the doubt in that manner. There are 2 really recent hilarious examples of this. One was the Colorado Rockies, and this is from a delightful article from Patrick Saunders in the Denver Post about how the Rockies playoff odds right now are at 0.0% per Baseball Prospectus. And so, we went around and asked some players their thoughts about this. And, we got some nice quotes from star players like Brent Doyle, Ezekiel Tovar, who quietly told him the team could surprise some people.
Yeah.
Good. If you're on the Rockies, that's exactly what you should be saying. Now, the reason this stood out is because Rockies prospect Zach Veen, who has spent 0 time in the major leagues, said, and I quote, "I think we have the best and most underrated team in the league. I'm a baseball junkie, and I look at every team and everybody. I can confidently say that there are guys in this team that deserve way more credit than they get." Now, Zach, I know you've never been in the big leagues, but you cannot be calling the Rockies the best team in the league, right? And I think this is a great example of why the word surprise some people is, they are really valuable, Because when you say that you have the best team in baseball and you're the Rockies in 2025, you kind of look silly. Whereas if you just say, hey, we're going to surprise some people,
right?
No one's laughing at that.
No, because that could just mean so many different things. I think the Rockies only losing 91 games, I think would surprise some people. Now, I assume that's not what they mean. I assume they have more goals than not losing 100 games. But at the same time, what we really want to get at is who else is eligible for this, because I have to imagine that it is more than just the very, very, very bottom, because the ones that I've seen, there's one team in particular that has really stood out as like perfect for this. We talk about playoff odds, we talk about the trajectory of the team. But for me, I think that I also want to identify the high end line. Who's too good to surprise some people at this point? I want to make sure we're on the same page here.
We also had a clip of Connor Norby, who is a infielder with the Marlins, just saying to Robert Flores that he thinks the Marlins are, quote, going to surprise some people. And that's an obvious one, right? Like, that's a shoo-in. The Marlins are not going to make the playoffs this year. They could be the worst team in the league.
Definitely.
Like, that is a real possibility. Definitely. And so surprising some people, like you said, it's only losing 95 games. I think the White Sox can say that they're looking to surprise some people. I think the Marlins can. I think the Rockies can. I think those are the three shoo-ins.
Sure.
Who else in your mind is eligible to surprise some people? Now, you could surprise some people on the other end. Like, maybe the Astros could be like, I think we're going to be worse than people think. I think we're going to really surprise some people.
It's funny you mentioned the Astros, because another example I saw of this was a little bit more hyper-specific, but it was the Astros. And it was Chas McCormick, who was basically being asked about the Astros outfield in particular. Because Kyle Tucker is gone, and they were like, Chas McCormick, like, you stunk last year. Like, I'm kind of worried about this Astros outfield. And he said, I think we're going to surprise some people. Now, I think this is another element of this that is important, because I want to get into some of the other teams that could qualify for this. Teams who had off seasons that people were not a fan of, okay? That know that people, that either the fans themselves or the national people are like looking at the team like, whoa, man, like, I don't know if they made the right moves. Like, they made a lot of moves, but really, really don't know what they have. I think Cleveland fits into this bucket after changing a lot about their roster with like, oh, no more Josh Naylor, no more Andres Jimenez. Like, oh, they made a bunch of moves and people are like, oh, what's Cleveland doing?
I disagree. I think if you were in the ALCS the year before, you're not allowed to be able to say that you're going to surprise
I'm with you. I'm just throwing out categories here. I'm just throwing out people who could fit into this, who could also fit into this bucket. Minnesota would be one who, like,
disagree.
Okay, all right. So, or St. Louis.
I think I think the shoe-in surprise some people teams: Colorado, the White Sox, the Marlins, the Nationals. The Nationals are
let's
like
talk about the Nats. Let's talk about the Nats. The Nats are perfect, right? Because what they have going for them is young teams, so you think it's like too inexperienced, but what they have going for them the most is the division. Because when you look at the Nats, like, they are the team whose position is going to be most frequently projected to be fourth. Like, I don't think there's any other team in baseball that is going to be picked to finish fourth more frequently than the Nats. And so teams know they're not last. Everyone knows they're better than the Marlins, and everyone sees that the kind of talent they have that's like, well, maybe it's possible. But no one actually is like, yeah, the Nats are going to be in the playoffs. So they're in the perfect range.
I think the Angels and the Pirates and the A's are kind of grouped together as teams that think they can surprise some people. Now, all of them were not in the playoffs last year. The Pirates are maybe a little bit like too banking on winning. Like, they need to be good for people's job security. And so saying that you're going to surprise some people is maybe too much of an acknowledgement that, like, people think you're but
like, we need to. This is not like don't be shocked when they're like, no, like, we really need to start winning. It's a little bit different.
Right. Like, if you're a team with real expectations, like the Blue Jays or the Giants, they can't say they're going to surprise some people. I do think the Cardinals fit into this. I think the Cardinals, considering they didn't sign a single real person over the offseason and made the not playoffs for 2 consecutive years, I think that if the Cardinals come into camp with a young group and say, hey, I think we're going to surprise some people, they qualify. I think that's it, in my opinion. I really do think that's it. I think anyone else, if you say that you're going to surprise some people, you're insulting yourself. You're
Right.
you're admitting that the expectations, the Cubs can't be like, we're going to surprise some people. You're the Cubs.
No, I know.
You're not sneaking up on anybody.
Well, right. Even though it's funny because they've obviously won a postseason game less frequently than 90% of the league.
The Marlins.
Obviously, the Marlins. There's a lot of teams. I mean, they haven't won a playoff game since 2017. So, yeah, I mean, I do think that where teams view themselves is important. Then you get these other
Okay,
levels.
so what's above that? The next group, in my opinion, is sense of urgency.
Mm-hmm.
Teams who did stuff. Okay? Teams who did stuff, and if they don't make the playoffs this year, heads will roll. And I think that's
teams who did stuff in the offseason. Sorry, to be clear.
In the offseason.
Not, yes, this is obviously Toronto. This is
season.
Chicago. Yeah.
This is Boston.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There's a real sense of urgency here, which is another way of saying, God dang, we really got to play.
Yeah. Now, there's another bucket of teams who did less this offseason, but who the expectation has been postseason recently, whether that's Seattle, whether that is Minnesota, I think also falls into this bucket, having made the postseason recently.
Yeah.
Where it's they have a sense of urgency too, because they're a little bit they're feeling the heat in a different way, not because they're getting the hype of being off-season winners, but because they're oh boy, I don't know if it's on the level of job security, but it's at least approaching in that direction.
Above that group is the get over the hump squad.
This might be even higher above that, because I think that the get over the hump group, you have to have gotten. Well, okay, this is interesting, right? So Baltimore, where you are recording this morning, I think that fits, right?
Yes,
definitely.
They are the most get over the hump.
I think the Phillies are more than them.
But the Phillies are backtracking.
They are backtracking. That's true. That's true. But the Phillies have gotten a lot closer. In terms of
the Orioles have not won a playoff game.
Yeah.
So for them, getting over the hump is really just winning one playoff game.
That's true. This is a good point. Right. Now, I do think another one is the teams that surprised some people last year. This is my other issue with the whole concept.
Ooh.
I guess I could go back and see what the Royals and Tigers were saying a year ago. I think for them, it's it's a new
Prove it's not a fluke.
New standard. Oh, prove it's not a fluke or new standard. I think is those the ones. Or how about this one? We belong.
We belong. We have to show that we belong. This is the expectation.
This is the expectation, right? New expectation, new standard. This is what we. I mean, those are the teams that are well, now we're here to win a World Series, and it's we're looking at them all right, probably not. But I understand, if they had said that a year ago, we truly would have laughed in their face. Once you make the postseason, if you're coming off a postseason run, you can, stare a reporter in the face and say, we are trying to win the World Series.
The one team that fits into no box is the Arizona Diamondbacks, who were really, really good last year and didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
What do you think the Diamondbacks should be saying?
They were better than they were when they went to the World Series.
So
they are, yeah. Well, I think
we're looking to prove some people wrong. Are we? Prove some people wrong really kind of fits every team, but the Dodgers.
I think here's the D-backs. This is sort of hyper-specific.
Dodgers are trying to prove people right.
Yeah, I was going to say that. This is a little hyper-specific for the D-backs, but I think that this is good based off of last year. Bitter taste.
Oh.
How do we feel about bitter taste? Now, that's a little bit different than unfinished business. Unfinished business is another one I think we can kind of throw out there, because the problem is that the D-backs didn't even really get a chance to start their business. They were more unfinished business last year when they lost in the World Series.
It's the bitterest taste.
But the D-backs have even more than, because I think the Yankees are unfinished business for sure, right? They're closer to unfinished business than bitter taste. As bitter as Game 5 was. I think D-backs bitter, they are the number one bitter taste team this year. Because I don't think that's the problem. Like if they had finished one game out like the Mariners, they'd be in the same bucket. But they literally had the same record as the Braves and the Mets. So I think how do we feel about bitter taste for them?
I love bitter taste for them. I love bitter taste. I think we've got something for every team, right? Like Yankees are unfinished business. I think Braves, Phillies, Mets are over the hump. I think Orioles are over the hump.
Giants.
Giants
are a tough one.
Ooh.
I struggle with them because
are they sense of urgency?
Yes, I think so. I think they are like, because to me, I had been lumping them with the Cubs and the Red Sox recently as like these fantastic franchises that have since become mediocre and blah. But there's not as much excitement about the Giants as there is the Cubs and the Red Sox going into this year. And they have a division that they are dealing with that is a lot more daunting in a lot of respects. Or at the very least, their number one rival is the best team in baseball. So they have that going against them.
Well, the Giants, it's also like, there's also the new regime component to some of these teams, right? So they now have Buster Pobosy as the president of Buster Operations. And maybe it's like setting a new culture. We're here to set a new we're here to create a new culture. We're here to, and it's really more for a team like that, focusing on the culture than it is on like the expectations.
Or it's like,
I think that's somewhat evasive.
Something about like,
right?
Getting back to Giants baseball.
Getting this franchise back to where it belongs.
Where it belongs. They acknowledge that they have not been there. Back to where we belong is a good one. The last category that I want to kind of make sure we identify clearly, because this is, I think, also very difficult, and then we can take a break, is the Rays, the Guardians, the Brewers. Guardians and Brewers together. The Rays, I think, occupy a very interesting space right now. Okay? And A's. You know what? Let's actually put them together in some respects. Because of their franchise circumstances, they have that going for them, is in the nobody believes in us category.
Those two teams are very dangerous this year for the following reason. Baseball players will look for adversity behind every corner, under every rock, and they will manufacture it at every turn to try and give themselves a little edge. Playing in a low A baseball stadium in the Florida sun in July, that's real adversity. Yes. That's like the only real adversity that a team is facing in the major leagues. And so the Rays are like, we're going to have to come together as a group, and we're just going to have to go out there and play baseball. We're going to have to go out there and play baseball. That's what they're going to have to do.
They're going to do. You know what they're going to do? They're going to embrace it.
They're going to embrace it, and they're going to weaponize it, and they're going to.
The thing is that the Rays, it would be a lot more challenging were they not coming off their first bad season in like 6 or 7 years. Because normally we throw our hands up and say, well, the Rays are going to be good no matter what. Like, I don't care where you're playing. If you're playing in a public park, like, sucks for you. You're the Rays. You're going to be good. Now it's like, oh, maybe there's a little step back. Maybe they won't be.
Cleveland, Milwaukee, it's easy. We've been here before.
That's true.
We've been here before. Our organization, like, we've traded players away.
That's true. In
the winter.
They are in the exact same.
We've been here before.
Like, what are you going to doubt us? Like, we trade our good players all the time.
Yeah. I also think it's worth briefly mentioning the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah.
Who they have, what they do. They got a target on their back.
They do have a target on their back. But I think also Dave Roberts has also elevated it to like, he's like, we the best. I mean, he's basically said like, we're the epicenter of baseball. Like, Dodgers baseball means more than everything else. Like, all these things, which, like, yeah, right at this point, I was there. Sure, did feel that way. They do have all the good players. So I do think that, and the other big one is you got to say it. Last year doesn't mean anything. Last year's forget about it. Doesn't matter. It's a new year. We didn't.
You hear that, Dodgers fans? You hear that? Everything you enjoyed about 2024, doesn't matter.
Yeah,
you forget about it. Dave Roberts.
Mookie Betts just told me last year doesn't matter. So there you go.
Amazing.
If we missed any obvious ones,
let us know.
Are we going to surprise people this year? Where does Baseball Barbacast fit into this?
Ooh. I mean, we've been here before.
That's true. We're trying to get back to, Barbacast baseball.
I mean, we need to reset the standard. It's the same culture.
It is the same culture. The culture's probably not going to change very much.
Look, we have the same group.
Same group. These are the guys we're going to war with. That's another good one, right? When you make no offseason moves, you're like, I like what we have here. What's your problem?
Go 3 days a week. We're going to embrace that.
We sure are. We can't wait. All right. You can email us if we screwed anything up with our tiers there. baseballbarbacast@gmail.com. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we're going to talk about some of the topics you gave us because there's no news. We'll be right back.
And welcome back to Baseball Barbacast. Before we get to your recommendations of what the heck to talk about, let's do a fun edition of Sorry for Your Mentions.
Oh, okay. What do we got today?
The New York Yankees, the most important baseball team on the East Coast, lost a spring training match yesterday, 11-1 to the Atlanta Braves. And at Yankees tweeted out, Braves 11, Yankees 1, or final. Excuse me, Braves 11, Yankees 1. And the responses to this are great because, Yankees lose by 10 in the regular season. It's a disaster. They lose by 10 in the spring training season, and it's actually still a disaster. And so we have some really specific good stuff here. Danny says, unacceptable. Nothing ever changes with this franchise. Danny, I don't know if you've been reading the news, but actually a lot has...
So much is changing right now, like more than ever before.
Javier says, another television set smashed. Thanks a lot.
I just like these because here was the bottom of the Yankees lineup on Sunday. Pereira, Cabrera, Pablo Reyes, Duke Ellis, Oswald Peraza. Mr. Judge was not playing.
Matt says, I know spring training means nothing, but you would still like to see a win once in a while.
That's my favorite one right there. Because this person is getting joy when the Yankees win a spring training game. Like he is blatantly admitting that, which is awesome.
Completely unacceptable. Even in spring training, boys. Do better.
So I think another big part of this start, which has some people worried, is who started the game. Because
tell me about it.
That's Marcus Stroman, who allowed 4 runs in his 2 2/3 of innings of work, allowed 2 homers to Austin Riley and to Matt Olson. And I'm seeing some Getstro off the team. Not so fast.
Now,
not so fast. Be careful.
This is maybe why Alan says, send Stroman to the Marianas Trench.
That seems extreme. I don't think we need to do that.
That is literally the most extreme. I mean, it's the deepest point on earth.
Even if Schmidt is hurting, find a way to move Marcus Stroman. Is Schmidt hurting? I didn't even know.
I don't think he is.
Heel's hurting. More on that in a second. But season's over. Season over. Stroman, get him out of here. Yeah. I mean, listen. I think, but to me, these replies are these fans getting ready for the regular season. Like, this is what they will be doing as soon as the games actually count. So I actually can't really blame any of these people.
Michael says you had $760 million to spend on one player, and now you can't sign anyone because you're out of money. The fans that pay for tickets and merchandise deserve better. My question to Cashman is, where in the hell did the money go? You're so right? Like, spring training is a time for everyone to get into regular season mode. It is
stretch
to
those muscles,
boot the engine up.
Yep.
And so the Yankees reply guys, they're also getting
loose, man.
Getting their work in.
They're ramping up. They are. I mean, this is a slow build. They want to make sure that come opening day, when the Yankees lose to the Brewers, like, they are ready to go.
They're ready. They're ready to hit the ground running. And this is real evidence, Jordan, that, reply guys these days, they're coming into camp more ready than they ever have before.
That's such a good point.
Like,
I mean, they're throwing 98 on February 25th.
I will say there maybe is some legitimate frustration here. We have not had too many injuries yet this spring training across Major League Baseball. It seems like the Yankees have half of them. 3 major news nuggets for the Yankees on the injury front. Giancarlo Stanton's 2 elbows are both not feeling good. The double tennis elbow. No timetable for return. Hasn't swung a bat in like 3 weeks and is not going to be on the opening day roster. That's a big deal. Ben Rice, probable opening day DH. Mazel tov. Luis Gil, MRI this week. for shoulder issues. That's all. It's just his shoulder doesn't feel great. He was Rookie of the Year last year, probably projected to be the number 4 starter for the Yankees. And this is why they held on to the aforementioned Marcus Stroman, because the odds that one of your 5 starters in your projected rotation is not ready for opening day, it is very high. That is just how baseball works. And then lastly, DJ LeMahieu, whose lower body hates him so much, has a calf tweak. It seems not insignificant for Mr. LeMahieu, who has missed quite a chunk of time the last couple of seasons with injuries. He is 36. We were skeptical about the Yankees' plan to have him be the everyday third baseman. And before March 3rd, that plan has already been sullied, looking like we'll have Oswaldo Cabrera as the opening day third baseman. Although I do believe the Yankees should sign Jose Iglesias.
Ooh.
I think that's the perfect counterpunch to Juan Soto going to the Mets.
That would be something. I do think it really opens the path, although he maybe already had a chance for Oswald Peraza to make the team. That is just relevant because he is out of options. He's one of the more interesting out of options players. I know his prospect stock has plummeted recently, but that is still a player that I imagine there would be teams interested to pick up if the Yankees do not need him, although it seems like they will most definitely need him.
The Yankees are the team who the delta of how I feel about them has changed the most since pitchers and catchers showed up. And I think there's not really another.
I mean, hey, the Mets have some injuries too on the mound, but we'll see what happens there.
I get it. Minaya and Montas going down, like, that is significant. But the thing with the Yankees is specifically with LeMahieu.
Yeah.
Like that's what, and Stan, like that's what we were worried about, is these old guys that they're banking on to play a lot get hurt. And that's already happening.
Barely made it to March.
Barely made it to March.
Let's go through some topics that you fine folks gave us, because we don't have a lot of news. We just posted on Twitter on Blue Sky, said, hey, what should we talk about? So we're going to talk about a couple of these things. We're going to do these quickly, but we just wanted to, I like some of these topics. So we can just rapid fire this. And I guess this is like a version of turbo mode, basically, that we're just going to fly through some of these topics that you gave us. So where would you like to begin?
Joseph says, possibility of a rotating World Series location like the Super Bowl. Home field advantage isn't as big. Maybe it would grow the sport.
Thumbs down.
Respectfully, I hate it. Hate it.
Thumbs down. I think most people agree that this is one of the worst parts of the Super Bowl, even though it's accepted. From a fan atmosphere standpoint, it's not a real, like, you don't get. This is what I've heard smart people talk about. Like, this is not, does not feel like a championship in a way that other things should feel. So, yeah. Sorry, Joseph.
And sorry, Joseph, you seem like a great guy. I don't like this idea. What else do we have here? We have Blade Tidwell.
Tidwell.
At LOL.
Yeah, Blade Tidwell, like, threw an immaculate inning. Then there was some consternation about the exact specifics of the immaculate inning. Jeff Passan tweeted about it and called him Blake Tidwell. Kind of a mess of a Twitter situation over the weekend. Blake Tidwell is important because of what we just talked about. This is one of the Mets' top pitching prospects, who at one time was one of the best pitchers in college baseball. And if they're going to have injuries, him and Brandon Sproat are going to be vying for time in the major leagues this season. I think Sproat is a better prospect than Tidwell, but Tidwell throws very hard, and I can imagine he could get some starts this year.
Donald says the 4-year-long reinvention of Christopher Sanchez. I think this is an incredibly underrated development that the Phillies deserve a ton of credit for. I mean, they acquired Christopher Sanchez for a prospect named Curtis Mead. And at the time, everyone was like, oh, the Rays win another trade. Go Rays. Curtis Mead is like a top 50 prospect and Christopher Sanchez is like pretty mid. And I saw Christopher Sanchez throw live yesterday here in Florida. He's going to get Cy Young votes if he stays healthy. Like,
I mean, yeah.
That dude is gnarly good. He is going to be the number 2 starter above Aaron Nola this year, almost certainly. Wheeler will start opening day. Now, part of that is to break up the lefties and the righties in the Phillies rotation. But like, Christopher Sanchez is not like a 5 and dive playoff starter anymore. Like, this is a dude who you give the ball to and you let him cook.
He got a 4th place vote last year, and was an all-star. I think what's most interesting about Sanchez is, like, we were so focused on Ranger and his sort of breakout. and
Bingo.
Sanchez is just better. And I think most people would take him moving forward, even though they're basically the same age. I guess Sanchez is 1 year younger, but that is a very good one.
He gets overshadowed just because of like Ranger Suarez is so much more entertaining as like a character because of how he pitches.
Yes.
Right. He's so
Sure.
chill and laid back and, kind of just flips the ball over to first base.
Yeah. It is a different
defense
style.
But Sanchez is nails. Brennan says, why Gerard Encarnacion is going to break the Giants' 30 home run curse.
I love this one. Gerard has been a favorite for a few years since he was balling out. I mean, he has been balling out in the Dominican Winter League for a while. And now it seems like he just has a path to being the DH. I mean, just looking at it, like if the outfield's going to be Ramos and Jung-Hoo Lee and Yaz, it seems like he's going to be the guy. Like they don't really have, it's not like Marco Luciano's making this team and Luis Matos is more of a fourth outfielder. So there is path to playing time for him, but he also might strike out a lot, like really a lot all the time. But I will enjoy it. He certainly has the power to do it if he gets 500 plate appearances.
Great question from Braves Paul. Who is the best Spencer in baseball? Now, part of the reason this question rules, I think there is a legitimate argument that the first name Spencer has the deepest roster of impact players.
Oh,
right
wow.
now.
Okay.
I'm going to run through it. Spencer Arrighetti.
What a place to start.
I'm going alphabetically, Jordan, by last name, but thank you. Spencer Arrighetti, Spencer Schwellenbach, Spencer Steer, Spencer Strider, Spencer Torkelson, Spencer Turnbull, Spencer
Turnbull's
Horwitz.
still a free agent somehow.
Still a free agent. That's a pretty strong group for a first name. Like, who's the best one? I mean, if I had to take one of these for the rest of their careers, like you take Spencer Strider and you don't blink. And I think that's probably the answer this year as well. I'm the highest on Spencer Strider at all times for all reasons.
Schwellenbach's so good, dude. I don't want to sleep on him too much. Arrighetti was also very good.
Like the Spencer, if you built a rotation just out of the Spencers of Strider, Schwellenbach, Arrighetti, Turnbull, Spencer Howard.
Spencer Bivens. Give me Spencer Bivens over Spencer Howard.
Spencer Bivens
is fun.
Okay, that quintet is better than how many teams starting rotations?
Yeah, if they're healthy, it's probably a top half.
At least half.
Yeah, it's probably a top half rotation. Yeah, I don't know where Spencer. I mean, this would be a good. What is the best first name right now? Because it's probably
just Shohei.
Well, how many other Shoheis we got right now? This is from Shane. The end of the undefeated spring training Cubs. This was heartbreaking. The Cubs had not lost a spring training game until Sunday when the Reds took them down. But this was a hell of a start, and they are making a push for one of the great Cactus League seasons we've ever seen, which I have some data on, but I will save that for when they actually do that. Cubs have some interesting stuff going on right now with their injuries, or at least injury returns. Matt Shaw finally played again. Nico Horner is coming back from elbow surgery. It sounds like he won't be ready for Japan. All of this is really opening a path for Rule 5 pick Gage Workman to make the team, which I am rooting for because I like that guy a lot. Otherwise, it would be what I am very curious about is if Gage Workman makes the team, plays in Japan, and then somehow gets returned to the Tigers before domestic opening day because Nico Horner is ready. That would be a wild sequence. Vidal Brujan is part of that equation too. But the Cubs position player group bench is an interesting thing I'm watching since I was at Cubs camp a lot in Arizona.
David Brown says Trey Turner messing with ABS and Max Scherzer. This was one of the funniest moments I've ever seen in spring training. Max Scherzer, who unsurprisingly is the scratchiest about the ABS challenge system, faced Trey Turner to start a Phillies Blue Jays game yesterday. The first pitch was a fastball, not down the middle, but it was fully within the outside corner box, like of the strike zone, like an undeniable strike, right? Turner, without even looking at the umpire, takes the pitch, taps his head to challenge it, and just looks at Scherzer, his former teammate, and smiles.
Yeah. Just immediate challenge. It was great. Great stuff from Trey. Nobody was surprised by this. And I thought that was, it was delightful. I love that. Love that move.
10 points to Gryffindor. Anything else? Jordan?
Just one since, because where you are, this is from C. Ruben 31 on Blue Sky. Kate Povich, who's apparently looked very good.
Yeah.
And there's not really a spot in the rotation for him. But he threw like a lot of innings last year and didn't have great results. But do you think he could find his way into like being like, okay, he made 16 starts for the Orioles last year. Will he make 16 starts for the Orioles this year?
Yes, 100%. And if you kind of look at his progression, like he was pretty solid down the stretch. He had an ERA under 3, I think, in September.
Yeah,
like
that's correct.
He's a very talented pitcher. I think he's going to figure some things out. He's in the process of doing that. And the innings will appear. They always do. And I think if he shows up and performs, here you go. I would set the likelihood of Cade Povich playoff start at 50%.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Right. Because again, the Orioles are choosing to replace Corbin Burns with Charlie Morton and Tomoyuki Sugano. That's how they are doing it for now. But Povich could factor in if some of those elder gentlemen are not as awesome or are not healthy, which is probably more likely for some of those other pitchers that we haven't named. Cade Povich, there you go. Thank you all for those topics. I enjoyed those. Keep those coming, especially if we continue to not get any news this week. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we're going to talk about captains before we say goodbye.
Hello, everyone. Remember us? Of course you do. There was a great article on MajorLeagueBaseball.com by friend of the program, Anthony DiComo, the writer for the New York Metropolitans. This article was about the Mets captaincy and how the Mets reportedly over the winter internally discussed making Francisco Lindor a team captain. Okay? Team captain.
Team captain. This is a thing.
And then they were like, actually, that would hurt some people's feelings. So we're not going to do that. So they didn't do that. And I think that was the right call, specifically for the Mets, because Brandon Nimmo and Pete Alonso and Sean Manaea would, maybe feel a little slighted. And like, yes, you did just give a guy $765 million to be there for 15 years and, throw in the C on someone's chest. It can get a little bit political in there. And so even though everyone kind of knows that Lindor is a captain, giving him that official honor is more trouble than it's worth. But it made me think about captains. What are they in our sport? Why do we even have them? Who are they? Right now, there are really only 2 captains, official captains. That is Aaron Judge, and that is Salvador Perez. Now, obviously, other teams have had captains in the past. Jason Varitek had a C on his chest with the Red Sox. David Wright was the Mets captain at one point. But we really only have 2 captains right now, and I think that just says a lot about the politics that go behind nominating a captain in today's game. Mm-hmm. Now, every single college baseball team ever has a captain.
More than, right? Like almost every team has more than one. In college, I feel like you're naming multiple.
But this is pro ball, Jordan.
True.
And so what I wanted to do is speed run all 30 teams and say who we think should be the captain.
Well, okay? Did you say who the 2 were already? Okay.
I did.
Yeah.
Salvador Perez, Aaron Judge are the 2. So we'll take them out. So we're going to go through all 28 teams. Or if you want, you can give me a Yankees and a Royals one and be like, if they retire tomorrow, who would it be?
Salvi will bestow it on Bobby Witt at some point. That will happen. I think
it should go to Vinny, but that's
fine.
All right, here we go.
Vinny's not under contract for the next 10 years, so sorry. That's a big part of this too. You better be around for a while in most cases, is how I feel.
Now you say that, but I did find a bunch of examples of like dudes who were impending free agents being given captainships and then leaving. Like there was a year in 1999 when the Detroit Tigers were scuffling, and then in the middle of the year they named 3 captains.
That is an interesting way to handle that. What do we the emergency captain naming to get your season back on track?
The Los Angeles Angels. I think it is fascinating that Mike Trout is not the captain.
That is a very good point. But he's still my pick. So he's still the one that I feel like is going to be there, believe it or not.
The Houston Astros. Now that Alex Bregman has left, I think you can give it to Jose Altuve. I think the Astros should put a C on his chest tomorrow.
I agree. No notes.
Oakland Athletics, not where they play. Sacramento Athletics, not what they're called. Las Vegas Athletics, not who they are. This is so confusing, and we're going to mess it up every 5 minutes of the season, and I'm so mad at their owner for 85 other million reasons.
Brent Rooker.
But whatever. Brent Rooker
He has
is the
been
Athletics
extended.
captain.
He has been paraded
Correct.
around correctly as the face of the team. He is the answer.
Toronto Blue Jays.
Oh, boy. This is a tough one. Because, like, I feel like the veterans are now the pitchers, and it's not going to be Vlad Jr. Like, are there any position players that you could give it to right now? Probably not. Probably Alan Roden by the end of the year, but not yet.
I would say Chris Bassett.
I think he's more likely to be gone sooner than Gausman, but Bassett definitely does have the energy. Or you just give it to Scherzer for now. This was another thing I was going to say. How many captains have been pitchers?
It's very hard to do.
Yeah.
I would say that the Blue Jays, it's all about this season, right? Forget
true.
about next
That's
year.
True. We're pretending like 2026 doesn't exist. So whatever you could do to have the most leadership right now, then that's what you got to do.
Atlanta Braves.
Is Riley like? I don't know if he's forward enough. Again, I'm thinking it's got to be one of the guys that's already been extended.
It is Ozzy Albies.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
really. It's
a good
either
answer.
Ozzy or Matt Olson,
yeah.
are the two guys, but I'll go with Ozzy Albies because I genuinely think I could write a whole thing on this. Being bilingual and like fully bilingual and having meaningful relationships with English speaking and Spanish speaking players in a locker room is so important
100%.
because there's such stratification socially between those two groups in a lot of rooms. So a guy like Ozzy Albies who brings like Xander Bogaerts, like, that type of player, super underrated in a clubhouse perspective. Milwaukee Brewers.
Oh, I think still Yelich. Gotta be.
Yeah.
Gotta be Yelich.
I think you could put a C on Yelich's chest. Like that's another category is like, who are the guys where you could put a C on their chest and like no one would right now and no one would
say anything.
raise a stink.
Yeah. He definitely.
So far, Trout, Altuve, Yelich.
Yep.
Cardinals.
Ooh, Cardinals is it?
It should be Arenado, but he wants to get
No,
out
it can't be him. I mean, like, Contreras hasn't been there very long, but he's an interesting candidate. Brendan Donovan?
I think Brendan Donovan's the right answer. Okay, Chicago Cubs.
Dansby.
Dansby Swanson.
Born to be the captain of a baseball team.
Born to be the captain. I think Dansby is in the could do it tomorrow category. Arizona Diamondbacks.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. I'm gonna go with Cattell over Corbin Carroll for some of the veteran standard. Or Suarez would be another fun pick, but he's a little bit of and he's probably gone after this year, so that's tough.
I think Corbin Carroll has a C on his jersey in Arizona at some point during his tenure. Book it right now. Los Angeles Dodgers. Kike?
So between Mookie and Freddie, who would you go with? I think I would go with Mookie. I think I would go with
Mookie too.
To me, this era of Dodgers baseball is about Mookie Betts. And I think that he is the one that is really connecting with them. I think it's Mookie, but I don't know.
I would give it to Clayton Kershaw.
That's also valid if we're picking pitchers. I think that's fine. But he's also not going to be around for the first 3 months of the season. I would like my captain to be in the room.
San Francisco Giants.
Logan Webb. Logan Webb is my pitcher pick.
I think Logan Webb could have a C and people wouldn't raise a stink.
Yeah.
Cleveland Guardians, Jose Ramirez.
Yes.
Like,
moving on.
Not even a question.
Moving on.
Seattle Mariners.
So this is like JP Crawford was trending towards it, and then last year was a big step in the wrong direction. It's Cal Raleigh, and it's not a question anymore.
Okay.
Julio will have it eventually when Cal leaves in free agency.
Miami Marlins is Sandy Alcantara.
Oh, but that's also, I think it should be Connor Norby. Because they're going to surprise some people.
Because he's going to surprise
He's going to be there.
Yeah. But it's Sandy. If you're doing it right now, it's Sandy. New York Mets, we just talked about it. It's Lindor, but you can't hurt anybody's feelings, so it's not an
You
obvious
could hurt
one.
people's feelings.
Washington Nationals.
Nationals is an interesting one. A lot of young players. Like Nathaniel Lowe is going to be kind of,
He just
I
got
know.
there. What are
I'm
you
just
talking
saying
about?
that like he is going to be revered as like this guy just won a World Series. This guy's one of our best players. This guy's older than 30 years old. Like he is going to pick up a lot in the leadership category. But
Sure. It can't be CJ Abrams because he was suspended for being in a casino at the end of last season, and that's not exactly like captain behavior right now. There's not an obvious pick on the Nats.
Cruz isn't very forward, at least not at this stage of his career. So
no, he's a rookie eligible player, Jordan. I don't think he could be a captain.
Quiet.
Trevor Williams,
dude, you're laughing at my Nathaniel Lowe pick. I feel really good about that. I'm not joking.
Okay.
I think especially he's there for 2 more years. There's not any other obvious veterans. Like this is part of why they went out and got him.
Baltimore Orioles.
Nats fan Colin,
Cedric
by the way,
Mullins.
producer in the chat, is agreeing with me. Baltimore Orioles.
Great. Baltimore Orioles, Cedric Mullins.
Sure. I mean, he's been there the longest. Austin Hayes is gone. Adley, I guess. No. I guess as long as Mullins is around, I'm fine with it being him.
So I think there's a scenario in which that happens next year if Adley kind of has a bounce back season. Mullins leaves in free agency. Like I think that there's a path, and Adley signs an extension. Like I think there's a path there. San Diego Padres.
Machado. But Bogarts is an interesting candidate. Like he's clearly not going to be their best player anytime soon, so might as well have him as the captain.
Philadelphia Phillies.
Bryce Harper. I mean that's another one where
Kyle
you could
Schwarber.
See. But again, Schwarber might be gone in a year, so that's the other one where I was like, it could be Schwarber. But if we're going long term, like Bryce is the other one where it's like lock it in.
I get that. I'm
not going to tell you you're wrong about the Phillies. I'm just saying that like I have to imagine that whatever, that's the same as the Mets. You can make strong arguments for multiple players.
Great point. Pittsburgh Pirates.
Well, this one, I mean, if anyone is going to command the room as a pitcher, it's going to be Mr. Skeets. But I guess as long as Kutch keeps getting his $5 million a year, then he's probably still the answer.
It has to be Kutch, and this is why not every team has a captain. The Texas Rangers.
Semien. That's one where you could give it to him immediately too, and I would have no problem with it.
Yeah. Although, did you read Ken Rosenthal's piece on Jock Peterson?
I didn't, but he also just got here, and I will read that.
Yeah, but he seems pretty.
Jock's the man.
Pretty
Jock's
qualified.
Awesome. Jock would walk in and be the answer in a lot of places. I just think Semien is too solid.
Tampa Bay Rays. I think it should be manager Kevin Cash.
And he's probably got the strongest case at this point.
Boston Red Sox, just give it to Alex Bregman already.
Yeah. Seems fine with me. I think they would have no issue with that.
Cincinnati Reds.
Ooh, this is an interesting one. This is another one where like you could argue Hunter Green in terms of how long he's been in the organization and how he's kind of been a part of this rise. But I don't know. I mean, Ellie's going to be, top 3 MVP this year. So
Tyler Stevenson?
Tyler Stevenson is a good answer too. And he fits in with Hunter Green again. Has been in the org for a long time. Catcher. Everyone loves him. So I'd be fine.
I'll go with him. Colorado Rockies. I'll take Zach Veen.
Well, he's the highest on the Rockies. So hard to dispute that. Charlie Blackmon is gone. He missed his chance to be the captain, unfortunately. But I'll just go Doyle, man. People love Doyle. Everyone loves Doyle.
Yeah, people love Doyle. Royals to Salvador Perez. There will be a literal handing off of the torch to Bobby Witt Jr. one day. It will be great. Detroit Tigers. I think it's got to be Skubal.
Yeah, probably.
It can't be Javi Baez.
No, it can't be Javi Baez. I mean, this is another one where if we're going like person who's kind of at the top of the like in the clubhouse is Jake Rogers. Catcher wise, who's also been there for a very long time. I would say I would put him in that bucket. And Riley Green probably could emerge at some point.
Minnesota Twins.
Correa. You could give it to him tomorrow. That would be no question.
Chicago White Sox.
I don't know who's on. I mean, speaking of spring training injuries, Andrew Benintendi's got a broken wrist, and he's the only one that I know is definitely going to be there.
Make Paul Konerko get a tattoo on his chest that says C. He can have it forever. New York Yankees, besides Aaron Judge, it's Garrett Cole.
Yes. Agreed. Amen. Sorry, Carlos. You're not a captain material.
Good job, everybody. We did it. That's all 30 teams. Let us know what we got wrong. I enjoyed that. Jordan, I have had a very funny recording experience here in the Orioles spring training stadium as they are setting up the suite behind me. And so I'm going to really skedaddle here.
All right.
You could say goodbye to everybody.
That's it. Thank you all for listening. baseballbarbacast@gmail.com. Jake is playing himself off with a harmonica. Thank you to producer Colin Brennan for making the show possible. And we will talk to you all on Wednesday, 3 times a week, folks. We'll talk to you soon. See ya.